All right. So thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today. Um,
For having me.
so let's get started at the very beginning. What was your first ever alcoholic beverage?
Oh my gosh, my first ever alcoholic beverage. Probably champagne. It would be my best guess.
Classy.
I know, sounds really classy, right? It's weird. I wasn't really a beer drinker till college. But and even then, it's like my family we celebrate everything with champagne. So it does make us sound very fancy, but I promise you it's not. It's the fanciest thing about us. But yeah, probably champagne.
Very sophisticated of you. So then how do you go from not being that much of a beer drinker to co-founding a brewery?
Well, I went to school in Missouri. I went to Mizzou, and down there, beer was I don't know. I feel like craft beer was just sort of a bigger thing down there when I was in school, and at that time, Boulevard Brewing in Kansas City and New Belgium and Colorado, those beers didn't make it over the Mississippi. So in Illinois, you didn't see them. So going to school down there, it was kind of like a special thing that you had access to this stuff. Plus, there was a microbrewery in my town, and it was called Flat Branch, and that was probably the first place I ever had a beer at, like actually at a bar. And I just sort of got into it. I was dating a guy who was homebrewing a little bit, and that sort of piqued my interest. And we were not making good beer at all, but so we would go to the pub to actually enjoy good beer. And I think it was really talking to the brewer there. It's kind of cool because in Missouri, it's known as the cave state. And what they would do with their barrels is they would actually store them like long term, like in caves to keep them cold because it's so nice and cold in caves. And there was something about that I thought was fascinating, just talking to them about hops. And so all of a sudden this whole world opened up, and I got way more into it.
It was either going to be that or cave exploring. Once you learn you can find beer in a cave, all of a sudden you get that adventurous streak. You just want to go.
Right.
So you really did everything right. You started with drinking champagne, and then when you got to college, you didn't grab the Natty Light, you grabbed the craft beer.
Well, I had definitely like tried Natty Light in high school. I mean,
Right.
not in high school.
When you were 21.
When I was 21. And I think that's what initially turned me off from beer, because I tasted it and I was just like, why do people like this? And I had such a hard time understanding that. So, yeah.
Yeah, nobody likes it. You settle for it. And then you go to Skeleton Key Brewery for the beers that you actually like. So talk to me about this beautiful brewery you have behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been over a year in the planning, as you can imagine. We had actually, as a brewery have been around for just about 5 years. It'll be 5 years in September. And right through that door over there, that's actually our entrance. But if you go around is where our original tap room is. And it's where the brewery is. And you really have like access to being able to see the brewing process and all the stainless but it's very dark back there. And I always kind of wanted a space that was like a little bit lighter and brighter, and also just to have a space to have events, because people hit us up all the time for like, oh, we have a bridal shower, we have a 30th birthday party, stuff like that, and we weren't able to accommodate that before. So when this space directly adjacent to us became available, we jumped at the chance. And we actually signed the lease on it 10 days before the statewide, closure, which led to like some really tough decisions, because we were like, well, shit, do we go forward with this? I mean, we already had the funding and the plan and, our general contractor lined up, or do we take that money and put it into a canning line? And ultimately we were like, we can always rent a canning line, which is what we do to can our beer, but you can't rent event space. You can't rent additional capacity. Also, we thought that the pandemic was going to be, like 14
2
days.
weeks, right? Yeah.
Curve and it's over. So
happy anniversary.
Yeah. So now it's, I think we actually did our grand opening almost a year to the day when we were first shut down. So it gave us some time to like do it nice and slow and like really get like a pretty aesthetic in place.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Now, I want to, usually I hate questions like this because when you ask somebody about being female in an industry, to me, it's like, okay, well, now you're just perpetuating that and calling, like, shedding light on me, like you're making about me being a woman. But you are legitimately the first solo female that I've interviewed doing this.
Thing.
So, what are some of the unique experiences you think that you have being a woman in the brewing industry and as a brewery owner?
So I think that you're right. I do get asked that question a lot. I think we all do, but I'm not opposed to it because I think it's really important to ask that question too because it gives me an opportunity to highlight all the awesome women who are in craft beer because it's not just me. There's Ray down at Rabid Brewing in Homewood, Lisa Greger at Church Street Brewing. Tracy Hurst at Metropolitan. There's a bunch of Shayna Solarte at Dovetail. Like there's a whole awesome network of women. Of course, there are fewer of us than there are men, and a lot of times our jobs are not as quote unquote glamorous. Not that brewing is actually a very glamorous job. You're cleaning
What?
you're cleaning and you're waiting and you're testing things. But and we, a lot of us participate in that as well. But for me, it's been an opportunity to be able to expose other women to the brewing industry and to say, hey, we're here too, and you can be, so don't hold back from pursuing a career in beer because you think that you're alone, because you're not. And we have this wonderful organization called the Pink Boots Society. It's a professional organization that's dedicated to empowering, educating, and inspiring women in craft beer. And every year we have like a big brew day where we invite women from all aspects of the beer industry. All you have to do is make money from beer and you can be in Pink Boots. And be a woman, or identify as a woman. And so we have these brew days where we get women who may not have had an opportunity to be back in the brew house, and they get to actually get their hands dirty and pour the hops in and clean clean out the mash tun, and just really understand how the process works, which is important not only to just the exposure aspect, but also it helps them be better at their jobs. They're gaining a deeper understanding of the beer industry. So I think that I feel, privileged to be an owner, and I want to be able to share as much of the experience that I've gained with other women so that they can, go on to open their own awesome breweries.
Yeah, and I love that too, the providing the education, because I haven't been in the service industry in a minute now, but I was for quite some time. And something that I always felt was that I wasn't getting taken seriously and I didn't see a path forward. And I wonder how much a difference it would have made if I had had something like the Pink Boot Society to provide that education so that I knew, at least I was solid in my own knowledge. So if somebody wasn't taking me seriously, well, that was their problem, not my problem, because I know what's going on. So,
Exactly.
oh, thank you for sharing that with me, because I wasn't even tracking the Pink Boot Society. That's
Oh, you
so,
can check it out. We make a beer every year for Women's International Women's Day, and so we
I love
just
that.
brewed one at So Hopped, where there's another awesome woman, Katie Hoffman, and she led the brew day, and sort of we had, even it was socially distant. We were all masked the entire time, and there were probably a dozen women there representing a dozen different breweries, and we brewed a beer together, and then we each sell it, and we did it here 3 years ago.
I
So
love that. Oh, that makes me so excited. So we have the Pink Boot Society, and you guys have the Skullmuggery Society. So can you tell me what that is, what that entails, and it's only open once a year?
it is. It's our version of a mug club right now. Technically, legally, mug clubs are illegal. Like you can't have a mug club. But what we did was, instead of going you get a giant mug for the what everyone else gets, we got these really rad skull mugs, which people are all about just drinking out of. And then we have parties. We had a party last night for our Skullmuggery Society members where we provided food. They came in, they got, it was just a private party for just them. We did some little, giveaways of some special skull mugs for them. But for us, it's really been a huge cornerstone of our business model. And it's something that, with my marketing background, I always hoped would be a big thing, but it's really helped contribute to like the sense of community that I think defines a lot of what Skeleton Key is. So, I mean, our mug club members have like become friends. And like, I mean, they all know each other, and there's 300 of them. So, I mean, it's not like, a small little thing, but like, it's just cool because then when they come in and sit at the bar, they have each other to talk to if they're solo, and it's cool.
Yeah, that sense of camaraderie.
Yeah.
So why Skeleton Key? What's the significance in that name?
Oh, so like I mentioned, my background is in marketing and branding. And so it was really important to me to have a name that was going to exemplify what our brand was. And when we started Skeleton Key, we were originally wanted to be like, well, and we still are in a way, but we thought it'd be cool to be a platform for other, home brewers to sort of get their start. And so the key idea was like one key that opens many different doors, right? So like one door is, just a door to enjoying beer in a very visceral sense. So sitting at the bar, drinking it. And then another door would be through the classes that we host here. Because we teach beer classes, sensory training, things like that. And that would be another door. So opening another door to like deeper understanding. And then the third door is through our incubator program, which is where we actually have breweries that have come and worked with us. Well, would be breweries, will be breweries, I should say, that come and work with us for 12 weeks. It's, we don't charge anything for it. They just come and, you get out of it what you put into it. And so that's another door. It's the door to opening your own doors. And we've actually helped now two breweries open, Garage Band in Plainfield and Brother Chimp in North Aurora, and then Bubble House, which should be opening in Lisle later this year. So it's cool to have realized that dream. But yeah, it's one key that opens many different doors. And it gives us the opportunity to be both like have like a vintage aspect to it, as well as like sort of an edgy skeleton aspect. So
Yeah, pirate, but aesthetic pirate.
right. Right.
um, and I'm glad that you touched on those classes, because I was thinking to myself as I was looking over your website, you make a damn good product when you're not afraid to create your competition.
Yeah, and it's totally, because I think, and I'm sure other brewers that you've talked to have said the same thing. So I'm probably gonna be retreading some familiar ground, but I think that this industry is really unique in that we are kind of friends with each other. Like, I know you've talked to my buddy Charles St. Clair over at Black
Yep.
Horizon. I know you talked to Josh Mowry over at Miskatonic.
Yep.
We're all tight. Like, they are within, I mean, Miskatonic's 8 minutes from here, Black Horizon's 10 minutes from here, but like, we're all friends.
Yeah.
And it's because if you are confident in the product that you're making, you don't have to be afraid of what other people are doing. And so it's the same thing with like helping these smaller breweries open up. It's like, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like, we're just removing the barriers that shouldn't be there to begin with.
Absolutely. And since you are so confident in your product, and I have to ask it, I ask everyone, what's your favorite beer that you
Ooh,
guys sell?
I'm drinking it right now, actually.
Look at that.
It is a Schwartz beer. So we
Oh.
call it Seventh Evil X, and it is so it's a German black lager. And it's funny because I was thinking about this earlier today in preparation for talking to you, because I thought she's going to ask me what my favorite beer is. And it's funny because I really have in recent years gravitated a lot towards like IPAs and lagers in general. But when I think back to like those first beers that I was drinking at Flat Branch, like I was talking about, they were dark beers. Like, I loved brown ales, I loved stouts. And the thing that I love about a Schwartz beer is that it has all that dark, like roasty character, but it's light bodied. So it's like a summery, dark beer. But yeah, real crisp. It's my favorite.
I love that about Schwartz beers too, because I feel like they make dark beers accessible, if that makes sense. Like I get scared away from dark beers because anything bitter tasting, I'm like, but then I had a Schwartz beer. I was like, oh, this just looks dark. It just looks like it's scary, but it tastes amazing and light. And I cannot wait to get my hands
Super
on one of
food
yours.
friendly. Like, yeah, it's a great.
Yeah. So what is going to come for Skeleton Key Brewery in 2021?
Gosh, I think what I've been telling myself lately is that I really need to slow down and just be happy with the fact that this is done in here. But I'm a very project oriented person, and I'm already thinking about what we're doing next. which is going to be building a patio out front. What you can't see, like what I'm facing, is that we also have a big glass garage door, and we're going to be building during the pandemic. I went before the village board and got permission to to turn this into a patio. And so that's gonna be the next thing we work on. These tables over here, the ones with the yellow chairs, those are gonna be booths. So like just sort of continuing to zhuzh up the space. But ultimately we want this to be a go-to for events, like for once that becomes a thing again, for, to be a gathering place. And getting back to live music, I miss live music more than anything, and we miss having live music here, and we've been very, very cautious throughout all this. So we're really tight with the musicians who we have here. We've done collab beers with them before, so I want to get back to that. I want to get back to feeling normal, and I think that's sort of the direction that we're really going for.
A patio, that beautiful aesthetic, live music. Everybody should be having their wedding at Skeleton Key Brewery. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Look at it. It's a no-brainer. Do you guys have anything on the books yet for live music coming back, or just like gonna get it down sometime this year?
Got to get it down sometime this year. I mean, we have a roster of musicians that we work with regularly, and so we look forward to bringing them back first and foremost. We've done musicians that range everywhere from Americana, like folk rock to hip hop. So I mean, we really sort of cover a huge range. There's a lot of overlap between breweries around here and the musicians that play there, and so we're always trying to find something that's a little bit different. We're always trying to push the inclusiveness aspect, and so we want to just try a range of things to try and bring in a range of people.
Yeah. And so what would you say that if somebody walks into your brewery, has a drink, what do you want them to take away from that whole experience?
If there's one thing I want people to take away when they leave here, it's a feeling of community. I want them to feel like they were part of the family from the minute they walked in, because we ourselves are a family. It's me, it's my brother John, who is our head brewer. It's my husband Paul. My husband and I both met while working in the restaurant industry, so we've have 20 plus years of hospitality background each, and we really use that to try and make people feel comfortable from the minute they walk in. We want them to walk away learning something, knowing somebody new. Yeah.
The power of drinking some beer. Some good beer. All right. Well, is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on that you want to get out there in the open for the people to hear?
Okay. So in addition to owning Skeleton Key, I also sit on the board of directors for the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. And one of the big things that we do is we help facilitate like legislation changes to help the industry. And especially right now with the hospitality industry having been really disproportionately affected by COVID, there are a lot of things that we're trying to do to give breweries an opportunity to grow. And so some of the stuff that we're doing right now, there's, the Beer Act, which is currently in the House and the Senate in Illinois state. It will make delivery permanent right now in June, right? During COVID, we were all allowed to deliver beer. People like that, right? But starting in June, that is no longer going to be, that will expire. We will not be allowed to do that anymore. We're currently not allowed to ship beer, even though wineries are allowed to ship wine and have been for like 14 years. And brew pubs, which are breweries that produce beer and also sell spirits and wine, are not allowed to self-distribute their product at all. So they can't even sell to like the bowling alley down the street or, the bottle shop that's a mile away. And so the Beer Act is hoping to change that and create some parity within the industry and just, I don't know, give brewers like the tools that they need to survive and thrive. And so right now we're just asking people to contact their local legislators to say, please support this bill. It's really important to us. So that's one thing that I would bring up that I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the very few benefits to the pandemic was that it's exposing silly things like that. Like, why couldn't you guys deliver beer? Why?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Exactly. Well, and the argument in the past was that it would hurt distributors or it hurt retailers. And The thing is that when we were allowed to during the pandemic, we proved that wasn't true. It just helped breweries, and so it didn't hurt anyone, and it helps consumers. Like, you're able to safely get product. One other thing that is really, really cool that I do want to talk about, that I think people will be really excited about, is this other project that we're doing with Hope for the Day, which is, I don't know if it's reversed or not on here, but it's okay not to be okay is their tagline. They are an organization, a local Chicago organization that promotes mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And they work a lot with the hospitality industry. And they have started an initiative where breweries in and around Chicagoland are producing a beer called the Things We Don't Talk About. And it's it's an open source beer project. So different breweries are all making it. There's a label design. It's an IPA. So how can you not love that? But that's going to be something that we should have coming out. I think you're going to start seeing them pop up at a bunch of different breweries in May. But a portion of the proceeds will help support the educational programming that they do. Especially right now, I think it's a really important cause, and it's going to be a really great beer.
I feel like that's something that is so left out of the service industry where it really shouldn't, because a lot of that industry is made up of neurodivergent people. I
Yes.
mean, it's such a fantastic community of that. And I think that it's so important to get into that hospitality industry, is that cognizance really just of mental health, just being aware, so that you can look at your coworkers and see, because when you're all in the weeds together, it's a survival mode, but you have to come out of the weeds and for a minute and like make sure everybody's good to go, because that takes a toll.
Absolutely.